These are assembly instructions for my 2025 calendar and notepad. So I'm starting with the box that's going to hold the pen and the paper. I'm just folding down on all the score lines for it. So this is the outside of my piece, and I have 4 narrow panels and then a tab at the end, and I'm folding that tab backwards like so. So I'm going to flip my piece over and I'm putting glue all over that tab. I'm skipping a score line and folding on the next one and gluing my tab down to the inside of my box. So then when I pop it back up again, it forms a separate little compartment for my pen. So I'm flipping my piece over so that I'm looking at the bottom of that little compartment. I'm going to fold in one of those side tabs and I'm putting glue all over it. Then I'm folding the one across from it, and I want the cut edge of that tab to be straight along the score line of the tab that's across from it. And then I'm putting glue all over that tab, and I'm folding down the front flap. The sides of that flap are right along the score lines of the tabs underneath it. And then I'm putting glue all over that tab and folding the final flap down. So next I'm folding up the small tab that's in between the 2 larger panels, and I'm putting glue on it. And then I'm folding that tab upwards. I want the cut edge of this flap to be right against the score line of my tab. And then I'm putting glue all along the container for my pen, and I'm folding that top flap over. I want the cut edge of this panel to be right along the edge of my box. Then I'm going to flip it over so that I'm looking at the bottom of it, and I'm putting glue all over those 2 flaps that are at the bottom of my box, and then I'm just gluing that down. And I can go in with my bone folder and just spread that glue. So then I have my calendar pieces. So I have cut out 2 different ones. The one on the left is done with my Maker 3, and I use the perforation tool. And that's going to create the perforation I need to tear away my calendar as the year goes on. And for my second version, I have created my own perforation lines using just a regular blade. So this is the version that you would use if you don't own the Maker 3 or if you don't have the perforation tool. So I have both versions just so that you're not limited by the tools that you have on hand. So I've cut my base piece out of craft board, and then I'm going to take December, so the final month of the year, and I'm just putting glue from the perforation right to the edge. And I'm lining my piece up so that it fits right against the top of my base piece or of my craft board piece. I'm just going to continue with all 12 months. I have them in order and upside down on my right hand side, and I'm gluing them working in reverse order from December right through to January. I'm just trying my best to keep the edges of the panels as even as possible on all 4 sides. As I'm doing this, I'm trying very hard not to get glue on any other part, just on that top portion that gets torn away. So now my calendar is assembled. The box that holds my pen and my paper also holds my calendar at the front. I have a decorative panel for the front of my box, and I'm covering the panel in glue, and then I'm gluing it on top of the front of my box, and I'm doing my best to match up the cutout that's on both panels. So I want them glued right on top of one another. And I'm going in with my bone folder and spreading that glue. And then I have this piece. I'm holding the flap towards the bottom and covering the 3 sides and that top part in glue. And then I'm taking my calendar and I'm just gluing it so the edges match up. So I've glued down all 4 sides, and I still have this flap that's free. So I'm going to take that flap and I'm inserting it into the holes that are on the base of my box, like so. And that way, if you really like your calendar, you can actually just replace your calendar from year to year. So these 3 pieces are the easel for my calendar, and I'm just folding down on all the score lines. So for the shorter of my pieces, I have the tab at the top, and then I have a score line that's almost halfway. The score line is there for placement of my support piece for my easel. I'm looking at the underside of my reinforcement piece, and I'm putting glue on one of the tabs from the score line to the end. And then I'm placing my piece so that the score line of my tab is exactly on the placement score line. It's just along that score line, and it's centered on the panel. And then I'm folding that center score line down and that other tab upwards like so. And then I'm going to take my tab at the top, I'm folding it up towards me, I'm going to put glue all over it. And then I'm taking my other easel piece. So I've got those folded panels at the bottom and I have a long panel at the top. So I'm joining the cut edge of my longer panel to the tab on the shorter one. So while my piece is still flat, I'm going to glue down my decorative pieces, and I'm just putting glue on the underside of my pattern cardstock. I'm just gluing it down. I'm trying to leave an even border all the way around 4 sides. And I'm doing that with the other panel as well. I've decorated this side of it. I'm flipping it over, so I'm looking at the inside of my piece, and I am folding that reinforcement piece upwards, downwards, and then upwards again, and then I'm covering that tab with glue, and then folding down on the score line that's just above, and I'm applying pressure until that glue takes. The edges should be nice and even. So that's going to limit the amount of my easel can open. So next I have that bottom part, folding it under the back panel. And then I'm folding up the longer tab and putting glue all over it. And then I'm laying my decorated panel flat on top. And then I'm applying a little bit of pressure to make sure that my glue takes. Next, I'm grabbing my box with the pen and paper and I'm putting glue on the underside of it. And then I'm gluing it down to the front of my easel. And I want it flush on the bottom and on both sides. So next I just have a regular pin. I'm inserting that inside. And I have some index cards that measure 3 by 5 and they fit at the front. Like so. So after completing the first easel version, I decided to make a second easel version. The calendar goes together the exact same way. The base I used was black craft board instead. And then I'm just assembling the box the exact same way. I'm gluing my calendar onto the holder and then inserting that little panel into the cutout that's on my box. And so this is the easel piece for this version. I'm putting glue on the underside of my decorative panel. And then I have this piece that's cut out of more of that black craft board. I have a score line that forms one side of this triangle. I'm just folding on it. I'm temporarily flattening it again, and I'm going to fold on the score line that's on half of this semicircle piece. I'm folding everything flat again. I'm lifting up the triangular shape, then I'm lifting up my semicircle piece, making sure that my triangular piece is in the groove that's cut into my semicircle piece, and that forms my easel. So now I'm just covering all the flat parts in glue, and then I'm gluing my decorated panel right on top. All 4 edges should be flush on my craft board piece. So now I'm taking my box with the calendar at the front. I'm putting glue all over the underside. I'm just gluing it. I want an even border on both sides and at the bottom. I can flatten my easel and then go in there and spread my glue. I'm just popping my easel piece right back up, and that's my second holder. So that's 2 versions of my easel calendar. So I just wanted to show for the calendar at the front. I'm not ready to rip off my page for January yet. I have a mock-up here, and so for each month you're just going to pull away the month, and if you need to refer back to the previous month, you can actually tuck it in behind your notepad.